and let's do a big welcome to everyone for the session, and great to have you join us, and thank you for that. I'm going to introduce, first of all, my co-presenter, who's Annie. And Annie Sophia has been delivering sessions for us in our MCI Live, and I don't know for how many years, Annie, so you'll forgive me if I don't quite name the years. And been really, I was going to say one of our senior facilitators, but I don't know if senior's got such a good connotation either. So I'll just say you've been around MCI for many years. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Denise from MCI. I'm the founder and director of MCI, and I love doing sessions like this to share our knowledge, share skills, share information with everyone, really bring the level of engagement up in organizations. So I'm going to ask people to get into chat, warm those fingers up, get your hands on the keyboard, and I'd love to know from you, what are these challenges that you're experiencing as people come back into the physical workplace? It could be challenges that people are experiencing still remaining at home. And could see, yes, I am South African, I can't escape that. But if you can type into chat, just let us know, are you getting people back into the workplace? How are these hybrid teams working out? Are they communicating well? What's going on? What sort of experience are you having in terms of getting this all to work and work in a really productive and effective way? And thank you. I see quite a few people really putting up certainly some of the challenges that we're experiencing ourselves, different days of the week, individual needs, team needs, client needs. Absolutely, that seems to be a theme. The exhaustion of Zoom is still coming up, anchoring team days, hard to collaborate, some days in, some days out. They aren't sticking to those days, reluctant to come back, absolutely, they're still quite correctly so much sickness around, days of virtual meetings, lack of motivation and reluctance. So I think, please keep reading the chat. I can't keep up with so many of the excellent comments that are being made. But I think that, and Hannah, certainly today we even experienced some of the the train strikes coming into the city. And I think that's why we found in particular that this session today was so popular, and why I asked Annie to come along with me and just share some of what we've found and what we hope will help you through our own experience, through the research that we've done, and from gaining tips from colleagues such as yourselves who are putting in such fabulous comments into the chat, and just indicating to us where there's a lack of something and where there's too much of something, and these types of dynamics that we hadn't experienced previously. So, oh my gosh, I'm moving here too quickly or too slowly. I'm getting my hands too sensitive on the mouse. So what I just wanted to quickly say, and this is our one little ad break, just to give you a bit of information if you're not familiar with MCI, and please keep these comments coming. I hope we can capture these comments. There's some really, really good people putting forward where the challenges are. And as MCI, having been in the learning and development space now for nearly 20 years, I know that I still look 21, but we do a lot and we work with such a broad range of clients that I feel we do have something to contribute to this conversation and to getting some of these challenges addressed. I can't promise you that we'll answer all your questions, but where we do want to put our focus is on the leaders, the managers, whatever you call them, that for me, have to bring or highlight or amplify certain sets of micro skills that they might not have had to use previously. They might, many of you will have been, and leaders will have been on these big leadership programs or a big management kind of program, or they'll have done little short extracts of something along the way, or simply read up on things as well. But how do they now, from this basket of skills that they've found or learned or gained over the years, how do they select certain ones that would really help them meet the challenges that some of you are describing? Because ultimately we want a successful work team. We want to be high performing. We still want our culture. And some people, the commentators, are saying, well, there's no culture anymore. I still believe that an organization does have that certain something that keeps us together and makes us unique and makes us achieve the goals that we want to achieve. So what we are going to be exploring today is, what are these baskets of skills in this new kind of complex world? You know, the before Corona, the after. I don't even think that it's after Corona yet, because it's still around, but it is a very dynamic, complex space that I don't think, and I don't believe a single commentator ever predicted this. You know, whoever you read, you know, the futurists, believe me, no one came up with this. And it's quite normal and to be expected that we would still be facing challenges because we haven't got experience. We're finding our way. And nonetheless, I do think even in these times of such unprecedented complexity, where I don't believe there is one answer. Nobody's putting forward, oh, here's the magic wand. I wish there was, when I look at some of your challenges, which are familiar to all of us. If there was something that we could just wave and say, fabulous, you know, that's cured everything, sorted it all out, everything resolved. And on the other hand, we're not going to just sit back and say, well, let's hope for the best. You know, hope just isn't the kind of strategy that's worth adopting. We've got to be a bit more proactive and try out this basket of skills, these new micro skills, to help us deal with the challenges and to, in some way, overcome them. And you've mentioned all of this. I'm not going to dwell on the ones that are at home, they're part-time, the trains, it's a lot happening at once. And I do feel that these micro skills will give you that foundation and something to work with. Maybe quickly also in chat, you know, how have your leaders found it? For yourselves or for leaders that might have had conversations with you, you know, are they finding it easy with this hybrid team? Are they casual going? Are they just moving along nicely? Or are they saying, you know, help, I do need a little bit more guidance in this area? And there, Annalie's given us a fabulous thing, you know, maybe not micro, but it's just this whole adaptive capacity, which I do agree with you. But I think that it is worth polling your managers a little bit, even if it's a very short, you know, 2-minute conversation. Just ask where they are on the spectrum, even if they on the not easy end of it. I think it's certainly worthwhile checking up, and many of you are giving more examples about how hard it is to keep people motivated, maintain consistency. Steve's saying there as well, and I totally agree with it. One thing that I am happy about, and I'm hoping that you're all in agreement with me on this one, is that the days of those discussions, I don't know, some of you might be too young to remember them. We always had to start a leadership program with, what is the difference between management and leaders? That discussion's over because it's just like, there's no point in discussing it anymore. Things are too fluid. Things are too, you know, just from the examples. I mean, I could write many blogs just responding to the comments that you're making there. You know, Jill commenting, you know, they might not be verbalizing that they need help, but she has the sense that they sure do. And that doesn't fit into this little conversation of management versus leadership. So I'm hoping that at least that we can put to bed and rather think about it with this basket of micro skills and ways in which we can amplify these skills when they're needed and use them in this very dynamic, changing environment where, yes, and Matthew's jumping ahead to one of the points I was going to make, where, yes, we do have to show ourselves differently as leaders and be able to dip into and use very practical skills in a different way. So if you think now and position in your minds of management leadership as rather a basket of micro skills. You know, some of you are already commenting in the chat, in fact, what you think some of these micro skills would be. But if you'd like to type a few more in, I've seen things come up as adaptable, being vulnerable. How do you show that you are more vulnerable? Others are saying in terms of flexibility. I think that was coming through on the chat. Anything else that you've noticed in the chat there around micro skills that people think are going to be important now?
Definitely, yeah, the manager's capacity and capability, the flexibilities that's required, and certainly around authenticity and the vulnerability aspect as well. Transparency, supportiveness,
Trust
communication. Wow.
Wow. Yes, I think you guys could run this for me. I don't know if I'm quite needed here today because you're all already highlighting for me some of the ones that we're going to be discussing. And here's my number one, which I think you've all mentioned already, about this ability to be adaptable, that no one predicted that this is how the world would look right now, that nobody can afford to just be stuck in that same old mindset of this is the traditional workplace, this is how it's always happened, this is how it always needs to happen. And I think some of you have mentioned that very clearly in your comments. I mean, we were saying, and yes, it's not even a case now of having a plan, just a plan B. It's plan B, C, D, E. There's so you can't just rely on one set formula working now. It's really a case of we have to shift gears, we have to change things up, we might have to modify, we might have to re-engineer. If we don't have that feeling of adaptability and flexibility, I just don't know how you would, as a leader, be okay to live through these times of the hybrid team, and to give leaders permission that, hey, if your strategy is not working, fine, press delete, alt, control, delete, whatever the buttons are, and move to the next plan. Because if we're so stuck, and I think it still happens in some organizations, remember they just set these 5 and 10-year strategies. I'd love to read these 5 and 10-year strategies now and see if they're still, quite okay, because I don't think too many of them are. And so it's giving ourselves permission to choose different things, switch, change, try things out. The only warning or something to heed, to note, is that be transparent about it. You don't, it's not just dump things down on people. Like my way is the highway, whatever that expression is. Just be transparent about why you've chosen to change things up, why something isn't working. We've seen it's not working. We're going to try this. Let's give it a go. And I think once it's, as Steve uses the lovely word there, that people feel that sense of safety, it's fine. You're not going to be judged. You made a mistake. You're to blame. That's why it went wrong. Set that up. And I do feel that in HR, in L&D, we are the ones who do have the capability to do that. We can make it feel safe for people to experiment and try things out, because we don't have the answers ourselves. I mean, if anyone here has the absolute golden answer, you're going to make a really good amount of money, because we're all finding our way through this, learning from mistakes, learning from our fabulous colleagues in the session today. You're already putting forward some great ideas, because with that very fixed mindset, we just don't live in that era of a fixed mindset anymore. Unless we're going to take those lessons, learn from them, adapt, try and move in different directions, I think I don't want to say the word, we're not going to have a positive outcome. So here's micro skill number 2, and I saw lots of you talking about trust. There was plenty conversation about that, and thank you for bringing it up, because whether it's adaptability number one or trust number one would be a debate, but without question, trust does have to fit on the list. And so my question to you is, who do you trust? And I think some people will type very quickly into chat. They'll trust maybe people in their family. What are the normal answers to that kind of question, Annie, that you find when you deliver sessions?
My team, my manager, my family, my partner.
Yeah, Alice is saying those who give trust, those people who've had your back through tough times, absolutely. And my next question is, but who trusts you? In your work life, we won't talk about in your personal life, we'll assume that family trusts you and friends, but in your work life, if I ask you that question, who trusts you? Would you be able to answer that as quickly as we've seen such fabulous answers coming through in the chat? You know, Ali's confident that his team, his manager, Kudzi saying, yes, people who he has backed, yes, they do, colleagues, managers. And I think it's an interesting question to ask managers and leaders. Just throw it at them at the start of a meeting. Just start it as who do you trust? And then flip it and ask who they think trusts them, because I think sometimes it can be a very different answer. And what we cover a lot, and I know it's not the most latest of all books, but I just find it is so practical, is The Speed of Trust by the late Steve Covey's son, Stephen Covey. And I find that if you do have anything to read, that would be one of the ones that I would suggest for leaders to have a quick dip into, even if it's the summarized version, just around how that trust is so critical to being at the foundation of everything. And he writes in his book, high trust is a dividend, while low trust is a tax. And I love that expression because it just reminds you of, with something as simple as being trustworthy, how much you're going to create, how you, just by using the sense of trust, how it takes off. It ensures that your team can truly function at high levels. And I don't believe that without that foundation, that's ever going to really happen. What we do say is, you know, how do you look for these opportunities? What happens if trust is broken? You know, it's not so easy just to, today I'm trustworthy, you know, today I have absolute credibility. What if the team doesn't trust me as much? What if they do think that I have some kind of hidden agenda? Maybe I am that control freak that goes in and checks, you know, how many minutes and how many hours was somebody online and how many emails they sent today. You know, maybe I am not on that level yet. Where do you think you could have opportunities for this? Any ideas from you?
Yeah, so for me, yeah, how I could demonstrate my trustworthiness could be to remove distractions. So whenever I have a one-on-one with someone, I'm completely present with them. Or demonstrate my integrity by owning up to mistakes. So I wonder, in the chat box, would you like to share any practical examples of how you could demonstrate your integrity, credibility, or trustworthiness in the workplace?
And Annie, also around, you know, people are saying be consistent, but I'm also thinking, what happens if that trust has been broken? I mean, can it ever be repaired? You know, people are saying don't throw others under the bus, own your own stuff, absolutely, walking the talk.
Yeah.
But what happens if there's been such a breakdown that that trust really isn't there? And people are giving fabulous examples.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, with those low trust environments, how might I be able to build that trust again? What actions do I need to demonstrate to be able to slowly build that trust again if trust has been broken? What foundation did I originally have to be able to potentially make that withdrawal from that untrustworthy action that I might have demonstrated. So really thinking about, can I build that strong foundation, and what can I do to build the foundation continuously to ensure that we've got that high deposit.
Absolutely. And people in the chat, guys, I don't know if you need to be in the session. You're also all over this. People talking about transparency and making sure that they have so much that's available. Have we lost our slides? No? Can you still see the slides?
Yes.
Slides are there. Okay, excellent. So here are the 13 behaviors that Kavi highlights as his 13 trust behaviors. And most of you in the chat have already nailed those. That's without question. But perhaps this is a slide where it's nice to do a little bit of a screenshot and show others and maybe share it around. I would even put this up, Annie, at the start of a meeting, maybe, and ask people to choose what they think are the 3 top of these trust behaviors that they'd like to consider. Kai's given an example there. Thank you so much, guys. I can't keep up with your chats. They're just all fabulous. But I think that this is a particularly useful one if you want to get a conversation started with a leadership management team, just to ask them to select for themselves which of these behaviors they think are most important. And then a follow-up question from that would be around how they select and how they would demonstrate this in terms of their behavior. Any other comments around that?
No, I love that idea as a way of, creating a team activity and linking it back to the hybrid team. What out of these 13 trust behaviors, which could we relate to hybrid leadership? Which one jumps out for you? Let us know in the chat box that you're currently experiencing, or you're currently noticing perhaps a gap in hybrid leadership or managing hybrid teams at the moment. All are critical. However, I wonder whether there's 1 or 2 you could focus on in the next few weeks with teams.
Yeah, and that's a great suggestion, just to even select a couple just to focus. And certainly an ad break here, because this is Annie's new course that she'll be delivering through MCI Live, and that's our subscription webinar set of programs. And so we're just doing a few extracts from the lead hybrid team. So I know, Annie, you're excited to get going with this one.
Yes, and in fact, that's our first session is booked in for next Wednesday, the 7th at 2:30. So please book in for that. Looking forward to launching our new course.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you. So here's micro skill number 3, which I'm pretty sure has also been mentioned. I mean, everyone's on fire here today, giving such examples. I would take all these comments and just make it into a great article. But number 3 to me is really also important, because the feeling of exclusion is a very powerful emotion. And people who feeling excluded, if they're remote and they can't get into the office because of a whole range of different reasons, they become the new out crowd. That there tends to be in organizations the out crowd who don't get invited to the lunches and don't go to the bowling and don't go to the bar after work. But sometimes the person who isn't physically present gets to be part of that out crowd. And as I say, that sense of exclusion is so powerful that it can completely undermine any other kind of work that you're doing. And so team life, as we call it, not necessarily team culture, but the team life has to have slightly different ground rules, I believe, a different kind of team playbook from the one that we might be accustomed to usually. And that to me sets the foundation for working with a team and somehow bringing them together, because we just have to remember, it's just human nature that when you are across boundaries and there is social distance, there's also misattribution, there's conflict. I'm sure you're seeing this every day where people are making assumptions. Somebody wrote them an email or somebody sent them a Teams or whatever it is message, completely misinterpreted. The tone, maybe they were just too quick. All the keyboard warriors come out and they think that they're on social media and can just say and do whatever they like, because things that they would never say in person to someone. And without question, we do have to be very aware of that. And that's where I would literally name it and say to teams, let's put together a new playbook. Let's just create a few ground rules, guiding principles, just so that we function as a team. If you've got something negative to say, pick up the phone. It can be really as basic as that. If you've got a point which could lead to a bit of conflict, let's make the effort to meet in person, or when we speak, let's keep our cameras on. It can be simple stuff, but it definitely lowers temperature and brings that team together about where will meetings be held, when will they be held, what time we're going to allocate to meetings. Somebody mentioned, and in fact, I think a few people mentioned about this sense of exhaustion from being in the Teams and in the Zoom environment constantly. And then when half the people are in the office and the other half are on Zoom, and then managing that dynamic. I mean, that's a topic for another day. In fact, I think that could be a nice one for us to do, is hybrid facilitation. What do you do when you've got some people there and some people not there? It's very challenging to facilitate that. In fact, just where do you stand in the room? Or if you're in the room and a whole bunch of people are online and you can't even see clearly from the camera, like who's there and who's not there and who's talking and who's busy on their phone. Many things that I feel should be addressed in this conversation around team life. Just as a quick meeting, I mean, here I've said an initial meeting. It doesn't have to be an initial meeting. It can just be at the start of, when you've got a group together. Hey guys, let's just have a quick chat about setting ourselves up with a few more ground rules, because we're just functioning differently. So let's have a different playbook. So I don't know if people agree with that, if you can find the agree emoji or the like or the not like emoji somewhere where it says reactions. That's what it is. If you like the idea. Oh my gosh, what have I done? Everybody's agreeing. Okay. All right. So, you might obviously link it back to values. And I do think that that's an easier way to do it in terms of reformulating, how you do things. And at the base of it, the values or the company values do form a great way of holding that conversation and just checking with them, how we're going to continue to live the company values, what should be in our playbook. And honestly, it can be basic. I just wouldn't allow vague statements like, let's communicate better. It's got to be a bit more specific than that. It's got to be, let's make sure that everybody's invited to a meeting. There's an agenda. We stick to the agenda. Let's make sure when we invite people to meeting, we include the right people. And if others don't have to be there for the full meeting, let's put the agenda items at the beginning that they do need to be there for. So it's just basic stuff. It doesn't have to be fancy language. It doesn't have to be something that people don't understand. Just keep it to the basics. And then, Annie, I think this is one that you found has been very useful. In fact, today at MCI is our tether day.
Yeah, imperative, if possible, to, is everyone going to be in the office one day? Is there a day, one day at least, that we can all be in the office? What day suits everyone? What day is best? what works for our hybrid schedule there. So really having those discussions to ensure everyone is happy with the day that you choose and commit to being there in person so you can do those things that work best face to face.
Yeah, and even if it's not the entire company that's there, at least it's teams that work together, and there's no harm in a little bit of an incentive, like chocolate covers a lot of stuff, but maybe a healthy lunch, I'd say, might be a bit better. And Kerry says, it's not always possible in global national teams. I agree with you. It's not possible. Just where it is, I'd like to see a bit more effort placed into that as well. You know, we still want to make sure that the teams are successful. We don't want to force people back into the office. You have to go there. I know that some companies have just taken that approach. It's just get back into the office, bite the bullet and make it happen. But even if we are working in this new framework, we still want people to have in their mind and in their line of vision what success looks like. We don't want to throw that out the water. No, success doesn't look like you just get up and do a bit of gym first and then come into your workspace and have the cat purring on your lap. Personal success, yes. But sometimes having, just an idea of how our success will be this time, next year, this is what we're going to have achieved. I think also having that conversation, bringing it front of mind is going to be important. And a great question there from Jill, with people living really outside of Sydney, not making them train in for 3 hours. And what we do is we just tell them to go and buy lunch. So when they're on the screen, they're eating at the same time that we're eating, and they're generally quite happy with it. They've gone to their local place and you pay the $10, whatever it is, for the sandwich, and that seems to help. In some cases where, Fee's saying, her team is everywhere, which is a benefit as well. But maybe it's a team lunch where everybody eats together. So that half an hour we've all set aside, we've gone to get our favorite sandwich, salad, whatever it is, and we're still eating together as a hybrid one. I mean, where Annie's also very excited, you can see her throwing the bricks up into the air, is that where possible, we also use the Lego Serious Play methodology, so that when teams are together, they can play together, they can do different things together, something a bit unique. And in fact, Annie, we've run that hybrid as well.
Yes, that's it. It's so these courses that we run, of course, and we're walking the talk with our facilitation by having hybrid facilitation as well as the hybrid work environment. And it can be done and it works extremely well.
Yeah. Another advertising break, if you'll permit me one of those. So definitely, when we also say in meetings, please, I know people get bored with the meetings and it is exhausting having that camera on, or some with the camera on and some with the camera off, and some won't put the camera on because, I don't know where they are, they're underwater. But if you can shake it up sometimes by using whiteboards, Teams has quite a good whiteboard now, doing different things, even if they're fun, and 1 or 2 minutes. I love it. It just shakes things up, re-energizes, puts a smile on people's faces, makes them do something different, using the post-it notes for any of you who do use those kinds of whiteboards. But there are some others available in Teams and in Zoom as well. But put it up, it does maybe take a bit of effort, a little bit of planning, but I think that it's worth doing that. And again, just setting the time to ask people how they're going. A temperature check. It's a basic temperature check. Just asking them what's urgent, what do we need to focus on, where do you need the extra support, what's stopping you, what could enhance things for you, what's disrupting your workflow, and maybe allowing just that bit more one-on-one time with someone just to help them work through this, work and resolve it. It's just a little bit more effort than we might be used to if we just collide into them walking around a building. So I hope that that's given you a little bit of food for thought. And it's also a question of asking the team when they are together as well, is we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know if there's going to be another version of COVID. We don't know. But if we can in some way plan for this unknown and this unexpected and position to teams, something has happened. It could be a natural disaster. It could be it could be anything that happens in the world. Heaven forbid a bad thing, but it could also be a good thing. The economy booms. We've got, floods of people coming into the country who've got the right skills. We don't know. And planning in this scenario, thinking about what happened, what could you do about it, what would be the right thing to do about it, encourages a mindset in your team of getting them flexible and adaptable and considering the future and what and how they would respond. And I love that as an activity, which I hope others will like as well. So I'm going to show you, before we do the next micro skill, I'll go off the screen for a moment, and I'm going to show you a video. And we've got lovely Vanessa here.
And now to honor America and salute the men and women serving our country with our national anthem, please welcome, as voted by you, the fans, our winner of the Toyota Get the Feeling of a Star promotion, Natalie Gilbert.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the star's light? Stars like last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. Oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets rattling.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't do my full introduction there to the slide, to the video, but I'm hoping that people will see why we chose to show that particular one. Let me just get back to sharing. Is my slideshow sharing? No. Let me get my things back here. Sorry, guys. Present in Teams. Here we go. Not so easy in Teams to switch around and get going between the slides. But I hope that some people are seeing why we chose to show that particular video. It's actually quite a well-known one, and you will certainly see it on some of the YouTube channels, and we're happy to send you the link. But why I wanted to show it to you in particular, and I hope that you also found it quite powerful, is because it is a lead in to this particular micro skill, where you see this Mo Cheeks. I'm sure some of you who are more familiar with some of the sports than I am, he didn't have a great voice. He saw this little girl who'd been chosen specially to sing the national anthem, but he was prepared to make himself vulnerable, step up, even with his bad, and he really did have a bad voice, but the level of support that he gave and that he provided to this girl, to me, really represents what we would want to see managers do. And many of you mentioned that sense of vulnerability, that, you know, he stepped up in a proactive way. He really put himself out there, and at the same time he became that very supportive coach. And that, to me, is a micro skill that managers are going to, and leaders are going to need to amplify now. It's not an easy one. I don't think it takes a bit of guts. You know, this coach is known for his coaching, not known for his singing, and yet he still had to put himself out there, you know, and give himself, you know, this in front of a worldwide audience. I mean, there must have been millions of people watching him, and he still did it nonetheless to support someone else. Any comments from you on that?
Yeah, and really great link there, Denise, with that vulnerability that so many of you mentioned earlier. And therefore, you know, thinking how we can link it back to the hybrid leader and what might we do, to also demonstrate our vulnerability, and, you know, to be the type of leader that, you know, supports and helps others without, you know, needing any acknowledgement or, you know, not wanting it to do it for ego's sake, but to support others authentically. And therefore, how might we be able to make it easy for our team members to ask for support? And that's where we really need to ensure in a hybrid environment that we have that open door policy. And how might we do that in a hybrid environment when we've got physical distance there? What are we going to do to ensure that our teams know that we are always available to them? What boundaries have we set up? What expectations have we set regarding seeking support? And that's something that we will really look at in our new hybrid leadership course next week.
Yeah, and I think building on from that, I would say certainly as strong coaches, you want to focus on the team's strengths. You're not always going to be poking holes in where they aren't, where they're falling down, and where they, you know, have their weaknesses. You know, it's you know, building them up to say, yes, you can do this, you got this, let's make it happen. And you know, I would also say, Annie, definitely that, you know, in terms of reward and recognition, you still got to get that, keep that going. You know, people don't. That's the same as in any environment. It's not like suddenly that vanished.
Exactly. Or because you can't see them doesn't mean that they shouldn't be acknowledged or rewarded in some capacity. And that then links to then these impromptu conversations or water cooler moments, if you like. How do we create those impromptu conversations that we are so used to in a face-to-face environment back in the office? The hallway conversations, the heating up your lunch in the kitchen, you know, going for a quick coffee at the local cafe. So really thinking about, in a hybrid environment, how might we still create a structure, a structure around communication? It's almost making workplace connection a ritual, and you do really need to create some structure around this impromptu conversation piece, even though it seems like it's quite the opposite, in the sense of it's an impromptu water cooler environment we want to create, but there has to be some sort of structure in a hybrid work environment because of the dispersed and physical distance. So things like, could we create a separate Teams channel just for chatter? Could we have some hybrid meetups, such as lunch and learns, the hybrid lunch idea that Denise mentioned earlier? Maybe random pairing up a new starter with a more senior person in the team to have an impromptu sort of coffee together in a hybrid environment. And even social events. I know we were probably quite big on these in COVID, but let's not discount the you know, the pub, the open up, the hybrid pub, or you know, any of these quizzes or trivia, anything like that. Let's not leave them behind and forget about them now that we're post-pandemic. We have to make sure that we create connection and make it a ritual in a hybrid work environment.
Absolutely. And I think, yeah, just a very quick reminder, if you don't lead yourself well, you're not going to have terribly much success on leading others well. So, bearing in mind your own well-being, nurturing yourself as part of that. So here we are at micro skill number 6, and this is the one where I know we always talk innovation, and I know we always say, oh, we have to be so creative and we've got to think outside the box and da 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 da. But this is the time for innovation, and to be innovative really shines through, because if we just stick with, as I've said before, the same old way, the same old things, how are we going to gain these new insights? Somebody could be sitting on some fabulous idea, and if we don't draw it out of them, how are we ever going to know? It's just changing that sort of narrative that, yes, we are going to ask you things and we're going to listen to your suggestions. It's, to me, the yes, but, and I'm sure many of you have heard the yes, buts, I don't know how many times in your careers, and switching that around now out of absolute necessity into yes, and. So here's Annie and me doing a little bit of a demo for you around what happens in a conversation when you say yes, but, and then when you switch it over to yes, and. So Annie, I'm going to ask you, please, as my manager, I need a training budget. I need to make a video, please.
Yes, but Denise, how do you expect us to find budget for this?
Annie, like there must be budget somewhere.
Yes, but you might think this, but there's no budget I can see, and this is going to be a huge stretch for us. I think you need to focus on something else.
Very despondent, Denise, with all the buts. We'll switch it around and we're going to try the yes and. So here we go again. Annie, please, I need budget, training budget to make a video. It's really important.
Yes, and how might we look to find some more money in this budget?
Well, maybe there's ways in which we could, do some things in the next year's budget that maybe aren't as urgent. Could that be a possibility?
Yes, and that is a possibility. We could look at the budget for next year and see if we can find something that could work for us.
Okay, so just a reminder for everyone, I hope you like my acting skills, but it's just a reminder for us that if you cut the conversation dead with too many yes buts, you're not going to listen to those great ideas. It's not that Annie's promising me that I will absolutely have this budget, but she is open to thinking of ways in which we could reformat the budget to allow for this. And so if we use phrases like, how might we, in what ways could we, how could we, how might we do things differently, it's pushing the questions then onto the person who's making the request and they then have to brainstorm and ideate around how they would find solutions. So it doesn't bring the conversation to an end. It opens up a different form of the conversation, even though the budget might not eventually be there. Think about also how well valued that person is. Just by switching around the conversation, reframing it, you're suddenly having a different conversation with your person in your team, and the person feels valued, they feel acknowledged, they feel part of the team, and they're going to feel part of the solution. Easy, quick stuff that to me is a great micro skill for a manager. And we do have courses on some creative problem solving as well. Here we get to micro skill number 7, and it's the ability to have perspective. And I think sometimes, Annie, this one is not as straightforward. All of these things are very nice to write on slides, but when you have to act them and when you're in the moment and when you're confronted with some of the challenges that people were mentioning in the chat, it isn't always clear cut and straight down the line. And the one thing that always reminds me about, you know, how we have to be careful about how we do take perspective is, I don't know if some of you remember from many, many years ago, I think it was in 2009, where that Sully Sullenberger landed. There's a movie about as well. He landed the plane on the Hudson, and everybody was fortunately and miraculously saved. But this is what I find interesting, and you know, his mantra to me is so important, particularly in times like this, because he kept asking, you know, what could I learn today? And that was part of his idea that, you know, in a moment of crisis, you do have to see things from different angles. You have to be able to take different perspectives of things and not just be down this one narrow tunnel where it's my way or highway, for the use of an old expression. And he really said to himself at the end of every day, what could he learn? What different perspective could he take? How could he continue to grow? And won't it be fabulous if leaders and managers said the same sort of thing to help them to gain perspectives and in different ways from that? So we're on to micro skill number 8. And, you know, some of you might say, yeah, some of it links and it crosses over and it is a bit repetitive, but I think that it's worth naming these micro skills so that they do stand out for us, because we are in times of disruption, and it's very simple to write on a slide. Become comfortable with the uncomfortable. You know, sounds all good, lovely little catchphrase, but really, how do we do that in practice? How do we really and truly embrace these different ways of working? Because they are different, they've been unexpected. It hasn't been something that somebody planned in workforce planning 3 years or 5 years ago. So how do we keep our team feeling psychologically safe and at the same time expecting the unpredictable, being comfortable in this unpredictable, and not just sliding back into that complacency again? Suggestions from anyone, please type into chat anything that you've used in your own experience that's helped people, you know, step out of the complacency, have this balance, this, you know, it's like a dual feeling of safety and at the same time being uncomfortable. And we will give you some of the key slides, absolutely. The yes and conversation, in fact, might be one of those enablers. And the transparency, the talking at the start of a meeting about things, that might be something that helps people. But I feel that L&D and HR do have a critical role in this. We can't just sit back, as I said earlier, and hope for the best. Not going to work. Absolutely, Kerry's talking about support, EAP. Remember, APM has Assure as one of our EAP providers, if anyone wants information about that. But I think as well that as learning development, HR, OD, whatever your roles are, you can't, you know, your legs can be swimming like those ducks under the water. But when you show yourself, you aren't showing, oh, I'm so stressed. Oh, I've got such a bad day. Oh, you're not showing that part of yourself. You've been in tough positions before, and this is our time to step up and show everyone in the organization that we will absolutely be there. We will see the glass as not half empty, but as half full. And if we've got that attitude, I think people will start feeling that idea moving with us. And Steve also gives some absolutely wonderful examples there as well. Annie, for you, something about, you know, what do you expect from trainers, from L&D people?
Yeah, certainly around that. Yeah, positive, glass half full. You know, really, we set the tone, don't we? So set that tone, role model those behaviors that we want to see in our teams. Thinking of the hybrid leader as well, what sort of behaviors, attitude traits, characteristics do they want to see in their teams? How do they want them to show up every single day? And the leader therefore needs to role model these behaviors themselves, because they really do have a huge amount of influence. Whether they're aware of it or not, they influence the energy and the mindset of their teams through the way that they show up every day.
Yeah, and sorry, I can't keep up with all the chat. People are just putting the most fabulous suggestions in there. And Lily just talking about the what if, the reframing, definitely. So a huge thank you to everyone who attended. A reminder again about our MCI Live subscription. We will send you information. We'll send you some copies of the slides. We'll send you the recording as well, so that you do have that effectively and right there for you. We're running MCI Live successfully. Annie, one of our facilitators, and one of the sessions is this particular one around hybrid. So to bring our session to a close, I want to ask you please to type into the chat, how would you sum up the session? What would be the hashtag that you would give to a session like that? And thanks for everyone who's saying the thank yous, but I want to see your hashtags first before you run off. How would you sum it up? Mine is hashtag let's do it. So let's hear from other people. Oh, Kutsi saying the new leader for the 10. I can't read the rest of it. Tools. All right. Energy. Yes, yes, yes. Twisting ideas. Okay. Thought-provoking, new age, future of hybrid, equipped leaders, ready for anything. Forward. Yes. Change starts with you. Love it. Oh, wow. I think we need to reprint some of these. They're fabulous. So thank you so much to everyone who has attended. We will stay online. If anyone has questions, anything that you'd like to know, embrace the change, definitely. And we'll post a link to the hybrid course as well, and we will send you an email for that if you do have any managers that can attend. We will send the recording, absolutely. And Shay, don't worry, we got you there. We will do that. We in fact had well over 200 people who registered for the session, so I think it's quite a hot topic. If anyone has anything else to ask, Annie and I are here. We can enable your microphone or just type into chat, and we'll be very happy to assist you. Thank you. Thank you so much to everyone who took time out to join us. We really appreciate that. We know that it's busy, it's complex, but I hope that that's given you some skills and something practical. Thanks, Nim. Thanks to everyone. Phil, Anthea, great. Thanks, Alyssa, Andrea. Lovely to have you all in the session. And thank you to everyone.